perspective. And here I'm being Drs. O'Cauley and Sundberg in the IDS Bulletin of 2012 that focused on agriculture and young people. And this is really a must-read document. It really changed my perspective. It helped me understand so much about the challenges that young people are facing, so the very diverse perspectives and goals that, that young people have when they think about agriculture, agribusiness, and rural opportunities. So this is really an attack on this synergistic perspective and saying that, you know, all around the world, as countries develop, you know, people move to cities, they leave the farms, and farms become more mechanized. And so why are we telling the rural youth in developing countries today that you should stay on the farm? You know, and where is the evidence that that's going to work at all? So this group really points to a very large evidence gap about whether the synergistic approach will work. And so they're really asking for more cases, more research, more demonstrations. And they're not just criticizing things, they're also saying, well, look, what you really need to do, and what the success stories that we have are telling us, is you need to consider in your programs the diversity of young people and the life stage where they are. And also thinking about agriculture not just as farming, but as agribusiness, because most of the more lucrative or transformative opportunities are in agribusiness. This perspective of looking at the life stage was really helpful for me as well, because most development programs really think about farmers that are making a business investment in their farm, or sometimes, you know, mature families that are trying to earn a livelihood. But when I read the IDS work, I could really see that, and from the discussions that we've had all year, there are many reasons and times that young people get involved in agriculture and farming or agribusiness. So I really appreciated the need to look at the diversity and life stage of the population that you're working with, and not just treat rural youth as one lump group and have one solution for them. So that kind of leads us to that big picture look at crisis and opportunity and synergy, leads us to the following questions. How can we engage young people in agriculture and rural development in that synergistic way? And then what kinds of rural opportunities can we help generate for young people that are leaving the farm? And then there's really the challenge of food production, because a lot of people in agriculture and professionals in agriculture say, well, that's great that young people want to leave the farm, but somebody's got to grow all the food that all the people need to eat, because the population is really growing. And then what we're going to really look at today, which is really something that comes up in every conversation, is, you know, what are young people themselves saying? And how do we engage young people in ways that help design and develop programs that really work? So the question that I really like that kind of sums everything up for me, and this is Jim Sundberg's question, what kinds of strategies create what kinds of economic opportunities for what kinds of people in what rural settings? So really incorporating that issue of diversity into the way that we're looking at and understanding rural opportunities for young people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and look at some situations and talk about what kinds of strategies have worked for different kinds of young people in different situations. So hopefully I have time for 3 cases, but we'll see how we do. The first one is the Kenya Maize Development Program that many of you may be familiar with. And what I want to focus on within this program is a strategy called Farming as a Family Business. So in this situation, there was a mainstream value chain development program that was training farmers to analyze and approach their farm as a business, and that helped improve their productivity and their income. So what they did is they adapted that curricula to incorporate farming as a family business. And what this does is it helps farmers engage women and young people in the family who are the workers in the farm. And so it helps the family make decisions about what they're going to invest who's going to do what work, and most importantly, how are the proceeds of that work going to be spent. And when young people and women are engaged in that way, the farm operates much more smoothly, and young people and women benefit much more from the farm. So it's been a very successful initiative in that way, and you can see the data on the screen. Okay, our next approach for successful synergy is to target and tailor your work. And this example comes to us from Winrock International in Nepal. And once again, it was a complement to a mainstream value chain development program. In this case, Winrock initially started an initiative to target young people with vocational training in agricultural production. And then very quickly they saw that only young men were being reached. So they did some anthropological research to try and figure out, well, who are the young women? What's going on with them? And they found out, surprise, most of the young women over the age of 15 in this rural kind of marginal area of Nepal were already married and living with their husband's extended family. And so when they talked to the male leaders in the community to try and figure out how to reach these women, it turned out the secret was to reach them through their mothers-in-law. And so they designed an outreach program that engaged in every village. It would go in and engage the men leaders first, and then work with leading mothers-in-law, and then spread that around to other mothers-in-law. And so the mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law could work together to figure out who's going to do the household chores, who's going to look after the kids, what work is the young woman going to do, what percentage of that's going to go to the household. So it was a similar kind of dialogue as farming as a family business, but around young people, young women leaving the house and going out to work. And so you can see from the statistics that at the end of the day, a huge percentage of the population ended up being women. And then you'll see the entrepreneurial literacy there. That was specifically designed to help women get going in their businesses and in their careers. And finally, the last synergy example I have is around creating decent work that's off the farm. And this example comes to us from Hathay Bonanno, which is a private firm in rural Bangladesh that has never received any donor funding or subsidies or external investment. They make hand-knitted toys, and they have 64 rural production centers that employ 6,500 young women. And the workplace was specifically designed with young women in mind. It has a flexible job terms. There's training. There's a career development path. They're very safe working conditions with benefits. And women stay in their rural communities near their families rather than going off to urban areas, living in dormitories and being subject to sexual harassment in the workplace or in their dormitories, which often happens in the garment sector in Bangladesh. So this kind of rural employment enhances food security because it's generating income and taking the pressure off the farm of feeding these young women and their children. And at the same time, it's a demonstration to other garment factories in Bangladesh. So that's my big picture snapshot of issues around rural employment and kind of some inspiration around some cases that have been successful in addressing food security and youth economic opportunities at the same time. So I'm looking forward to any questions or comments in the chat room, and I think I'm going to ask Whitney to share a couple with me very quickly so we can get on to Steve and Simeon.
Yes, thank you so much, Mary. I have a few questions here through the chat box that are actually going to be relevant to the speakers coming up as well. So how about I pose these to all of you, and as you're able to answer, please, Mary, if you have a couple of responses now, great. If not, we'll just turn it right over to Steve, as I know his presentation will also be addressing some of these. So the first one is if you have any additional information on the point about young people having access to economic opportunities in rural areas that are off the farm, and you just shared an example from the Hathay Bonanno. And then also if you know of any other example of businesses that young people start, and what is the general size of those businesses in rural areas. Do you all have any information on results framework or indicators that are being used to understand the impact or outcomes of these initiatives? And this is from Eduardo. We're also happy to put you in touch with the project leaders from those examples that Mary highlighted. And if you're all familiar with case studies or approaches related to advocacy work that supports young people, having access to more information, tools, resources, etc. So those are a few of the first that came in. And Mary, feel free to address any right now, and we'll then turn it right over to the next presenter to be able.
Great. Well, I can say that in general, businesses that young people are starting in rural areas, similar to those in urban areas, if you look statistically, the vast majority are informal sector, easy entry, low startup capital, kind of, just marginal, selling vegetables, buying and selling things, hardware stores, that kind of thing. So things that people can easily start with very little capital, if you want to look at the majority. And so I think Simeon will speak to a minority group that is more innovative, they're more educated, have more capital, and you can see some kinds of social businesses and private sector endeavors that they are starting that then have a follow-on effect with young farmers or young workers. So there's a wide variety of different levels. And young people also get involved in family businesses. So if they're in a family business, I think Steve has some statistics about this. If they're in a family business, it might be larger. So I think Steve and Simeon will speak to some of those things. In terms of the indicators, you saw the kinds of indicators that are being used. And I think they are proxy in many ways because it has to do with, how many people got training or how many people got jobs or how much production there is on the farm. When you have good monitoring, you're able to look at increased income on the farm. But I think that's all of that you have to infer whether, the quality of the economic opportunity or the extent to which that's really addressing bigger picture food issues. So there's a lot of work to be done in that area. And I'm really glad someone brought up the issue of advocacy because that is a key challenge area that was brought up this year during our discussions. And all of the topics that you just raised are addressed in the publication. So what I would love is if you have time to look through the publication, and if there's a case that's missing or an issue or vantage point that isn't covered, we would love to have your input on that. So I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to Steve and then to Simeon, because I think they'll also address some of those. But boy, you guys really hit on some of the key issues that have been coming up all year, so it's exciting.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary. It seems Steve may have just lost connection. We're bringing him back in, or we're working on that. So if we could transition to Simeon if he is online, that would be great. And then we'll bring back in Steve when he's back with the internet connection there.
Going first, are you ready there? We have Simeon is really joining us in the face of some significant challenges. There have been some political disturbances between young people and police in Mombasa, so exactly the kind of political volatility we were talking about. So Simeon's actually joining us via phone over Skype. So let's bring him in and hopefully we'll be able to hear him well. Simeon, you are on, and just say next when you'd like me to go to the next slide. So, Simeon, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we're ready for you.
Okay, so, yes, I am there.
Okay, we're ready for you to present. We've switched the order for a moment, and we're ready for you to present.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so my presentation touches on engaging youth in agriculture in Kenya. And If I'm doing this over the phone, I hope you'll be able to correct me if I'm maybe a little slow or if I'm not able to clear enough for the audience.
We can hear you, Simeon.
Okay, so the organization was established in 2012 and has been working with rural communities in different camping environments where we bring students from universities to interact with the rural community in controlled settings to establish the root causes of the challenges, especially in agriculture and also in student performances for primary and high schools.
Simeon, I apologize. Can you please speak louder?
Okay. Yes, so our organization has been able to impact on a variety of target groups. I begin with the history of the organization so as to put everything into perspective. In high school, we were able to impact on 1,600 students, and in university, we have been able to impact on 75 students through community camping. And within the same community camps, we were able to impact on 210 farmers. We have been able to also interact with 112 students in Kenya and Uganda through conferences that we organize with partners to reach out to different groups of young people on entrepreneurship development. Our organization has also been able to witness the maturing of very interesting startup companies. And as you can see in the presentation, some of the four most innovative ones are Shamba, Geolites, Mobi Agent, and Oyoska Greenpreneurs, which is where my presentation will be based. We are also working in two universities where we've established university chapters to facilitate students going into their community more often than when we used to do it when we started in 2012. Now, on the next slide, I will speak briefly about the community service that we do and how the community camping idea has been able to assist us establish and design and establish testing startups that have been able to drive our objectives. Now, the students who bring to community camps have one distinction. They have a passion for community service, and this enables our organization to bring them to the rural community and to give them the opportunity to interact with rural farms, because through such interactions, they're able to get a first-hand experience on the kind of challenges that farmers face, especially in agricultural activities and also in marketing of the agricultural produce. Our students, through the camping initiative, are able to then identify the challenges and document them for intervention immediately after the camp. And immediately after the camp, they get to interact with our secretariat members, which is basically a team of young graduates who are both entrepreneurially oriented in thoughts and action. And it is this secretariat who gets drive the change behind the initiatives, the startup companies we've been able to start. Now, on the startups that we've been able to initiate, with Shamba. Shamba is a mobile platform that was developed back in 2011, a few months before Springbok officially started as an organization. It enabled farmers to market their produce through the internet. By using mobile phones, they're able to not only connect through the Android phones, but also the basic phones, which are most popular in rural areas, and thereby enabling many farmers to showcase their produce without having to spend a lot of money. But the maximum they can spend in a month is $1 on marketing, because all they have to do is either access internet or be able to receive messages. And then the next one is Dualite, which is basically a partnership that puts two students, two former students from the United States with our organization on establishing a distribution channel for rural farmers and schools in the rural areas to be able to access affordable energy. Now, this program started from a camp that was held last year in September, and the camp basically enabled students to find out that the root cause of low performances and low farming potential in the county that we are in was that most of them had lack of access to affordable and reliable energy. Number is a mobile agent, which is just a platform that enables entrepreneurs from different regions to connect and share ideas. Now, the most important part of this presentation is the Oyster Green Limited, which is a company started 4 months ago to enable us to implement ideas that we've been receiving from our previous camps, which from the camp we held, the basic problem that was there was that young people, first of all, wanted to get involved in agriculture, but because they're also looking at for opportunities in cities, they are not able to come to the rural areas often and establish their businesses. And then also on the marketing issue, when most farmers, especially the ones who interact with this, were able to join the Egg Chamber network, the challenge is on how many farmers get to market their produce, especially after the rainy season, when a majority of farmers have the crops and the market potential is actually very low, especially in the local market. And by the local market, I mean the county-based market. So what we came up with was a two-level strategy of involving two distinct products of contract farming and market research. Now, I understand that contract farming might indicate a very huge undertaking, probably between corporate and small-scale farmers. And while Oyster is a young idea, what we intended to do was create a platform in which young people can take their little investment they get from activities in the city to a company that is managed through their own initiative, so as to facilitate leasing of land on areas and then ensuring that research is also done by the same company, so as to assure them that once the produce is ready, they'll be able to access that easily without any trouble. In this particular plan, we also target rural farmers, and rural farmers have two important advantages. One is Japan, which is that they have land to live, and also they have land to farm on. So that apart from leaving land to the young farmers who are mostly in the city, they also retain part of that land and plant on it. Sorry. Now, one of the challenges we had to, first of all, deal with was the fact that the big disconnect that was there made it hard for communication to take place at a basic level, where a young, interested farmer from the city would be able to communicate effectively with the seasoned farmer from the village and be able to share ideas. And what we did was create a platform and that form has already generated good progress. So the particular plan that we created was to enable farmers from the rural areas to share their ideas with us on an open platform. Then we upload that on the online platform through Facebook and through Mshamba, and these ideas would reach the town-based young entrepreneurs who would then see opportunity, see it, or forward it to other interested young persons. And the potential for such an interaction platform can be seen in the fact that Steve Kenya was able to establish that when the unemployment situation is real, majority of the employed or the partially employed youth would like to invest in low capital intensive activities, and rural farming, especially in rural Kenya, enables them to put up to a third of their earnings into farming and be able to get some return, especially if they either finish their contracts or find themselves unemployed, which is a common situation even for those who are currently working.
I'm sorry, Simeon, while you're paused, can you just let me know which slide should I be on?
The potential for rural youth investment in agriculture.
Okay, that's great. And you have 2 more minutes. So you
want before the yes, that's right.
Great. And you have 2 more minutes, and then we need to take some questions. So
okay.
Great, thank you.
I'll be done in about 2 minutes. Would that be okay?
Perfect. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you. Yes. So this potential that Credit established through our own research also led to the discovery that old generation type of farmers have not only the experience of the seasons, but also they have an understanding of how their market behaves, and this would enable us to make decisions based on certain experiences they've had even in the seasons that their farms have produced more for the rural community. And this enabled us to also advise young farmers on what kind of crops they should focus on, so that instead of focusing on maize, which is the key crop in Kenya, they would focus on emerging crops and emerging crops and techniques such as greenhouse farming and crops like watermelon. Yes, the next slide details the contract farming initiative, where we now get the young people to have contracts with us to assure them that their particular investments are secure. And then with the rural farmers, we are now sure that every month we have a sort of a get-together or a workshop kind of arrangement where they are able to share ideas on the market and the farming initiatives that they can undertake with the old generation farmers in the rural areas. Yes. Finally, the progress we've made is in just 3 months has also encouraged us to continue along that line, because it is such progress that also encouraged us to continue with the work of Spring Break, which was started by students who have just completed their university education a month earlier. And even what drives our organization has always been the fact that with education in 3 months, we are able to realize some positive response from local authorities, from the central government, and also from other non-governmental organizations that are interested in working with farmers in rural areas. And of course, on the challenges, that's the second last slide. We also realize that most rural farmers depend on rainfall, and that is a challenge that we are yet to overcome. We are currently discussing with different stakeholders to see how we can get water for a year-long production, especially in the that we are currently operating in, which is in the southern part of Kenya, next to the border with Tanzania. And the challenges of youth forums, youth agricultural forums, that also put money, and sometimes we have to do them through online channels in forums like the one we are having right now to share ideas, and that sometimes makes many ideas disappear along within the conversation as people don't have a real-time meeting. And in conclusion, what I would like to check is the fact that we believe in agriculture as a business, and through this process we've been able to encourage the tech farmers we are currently working on to focus on family business, agriculture as farming as a family business, and to engage especially the young energetic members of the family to be able to plow more lands and to be able to access more markets through the information we give them, because after transferring that information, it is up to them now follow up and make sure they do not lose business. And apart from the training we give them, the rest is practically them to undertake.
Great. Simeon, I'm going to ask you to end there, and I thank you so very much for your presentation and sharing everything with us, especially given the situation. So thank you so very much. We have a lot, actually, of questions and comments that have come in. We won't be able to address all, but I will send Simeon an email about some of them so that he can address them. We have a couple of comments and questions I'll share quickly, and then we'll go on to Steve. So I have one comment that I believe this is from Basi Archibong with Markets 2 project in Nigeria. The initiatives of having mentors attached to young rural entrepreneurs would work much better to strengthen in order to provide guidance to rural individual enterprises. Simeon, do you want to speak to that topic of mentorship between young rural entrepreneurs?
Yes. Well,
yes, we're here. We can hear you.
Okay. The big challenge, especially in that we realize in contract farming, is that the young have to undergo specific instructions, and this can only come through, for us, this can only come through the Kenya Agriculture Research Institute, where we have to now get an expert from the institution to be able to mentor young farmers, because while they have the drive, the desire, and in some cases the money to invest, they face the challenge of now, after the money, what do I need to do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis? And being that I'm also as young as everyone I speak on behalf of today, the challenge comes in the fact that I cannot advise them, and I can only give them someone else to do the advising. And while I don't have a particular kind of response for how this has gone in the past 3 months, what I can explain is that institutions that have our interests at heart have always been within reach. For example, when we needed Kenya Agriculture Research Institute, they were able to respond. And when we needed non-governmental organizations, they have been able to take up the initiative to mentor our youth in camps that we normally attend. And this includes individuals who are in the profession of agriculture.
Great. Simeon, thank you very much. Yeah. And the other part of the mentorship that you and I talked about, so there's mentorship between your partners that have the agricultural expertise and the more entrepreneurial farmers. And then what I really liked when you described this initiative was the exchange between these educated, more entrepreneurial farmers who are young, and then both the older and younger and different genders of farmers in the community. And that really what you were describing is not mentorship from older to younger, but cross-learning and exchange, different and diverse groups that have different kinds of skills to add. So I really appreciated that perspective. I'll be posting other comments and questions via email to Simeon, and we'll try and get more responses because there were a lot of rich responses. But I'd like to get to Steve to Steve's presentation now, if we could, Chelsea, because we just have the 15 minutes left. And so Steve is also going to share an example of how the MasterCard Foundation engaged young people. So Simeon's was one example, and now we're going to have another one from Steve Cumming of the MasterCard Foundation.
Great. Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you so much, Simeon, for joining us. Oop, there's some feedback here. Sorry about that. We are now transitioning to Steve in one moment.
My audio. Sorry.
Yes, Mary, we're trying to turn your audio off to turn Steve's on.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just thanking Simeon and saying that the mentorship in the program is more of a cross-fertilization and an exchange among
Okay, I apologize for that. We're trying to turn off Mary to bring in Steve. One moment, please, everyone. Well, Steve is only in Canada. We seem to have some internet challenges here with the connection on the audio. So we're going to just try a couple seconds more, and if we continue with this challenge, we'll just have Mary walk through some of the key points in Steve's presentation and continue to bring Steve in.
Audio going. Chelsea, should I ask Simeon another question while we wait?
Yeah, that would be great if Simeon can continue if he's on the line still. And then we'll just have to mute your microphone, perhaps, Mary, just so you know. We'll send you a note. So feel free to first talk with Simeon and bring out one more question.
The other comments that came in while we're waiting for.
There is something with, unfortunately, sorry, Mary, I just want to interrupt here. There is something, unfortunately, happening with Steve's internet access there, so we are just going to be transitioning to Mary. And then if Mary could just walk through some of the key points in Steve's presentation in just a few minutes, and as we continue on the back end here to try to connect with Steve.
Let's see. Again, the issue of engaging the government and the community in developing opportunities. And I think that the example that Simeon was talking about is a really good example of that. And then, let's see. Oh, there was a question. Simeon, can you hear me? Simeon, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
There was a question that came in about the solar light sales. And is the money from the solar light company, from the sales and being the mobile money agent, is that enough income for young people to do that as their sole employment or their sole job? Or when they're involved in solar lighting and mobile money, it's just one of several income sources for them?
Well, it depends on the kind of time and attention one dedicates to any of the initiatives in our presentation. Now, on the solar lights, what we do is give the young entrepreneurs an opportunity to earn up to 20% of the profits that comes from the whole initiative. So what we do is make sure that on our end, the sale is spread over many lights. But to them, because they only take up a small percentage of the entire business, if they invest more hours per day on the initiative, then they are able to make it their single source of income. However, if they have other engagements that bring them money, then they can make this a part of activity and it still gives them a good income at the end of the month.
Great. Thank you so much, Simeon. I really appreciate that input. For some reason,
Mary, we're just going to have to transition.
Right, I'm just going to do that. So for some reason, we're having a challenge with Steve being online, and I'm just so sorry about that. I'm going to do my best to share his presentation.
Mary, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Oh, sorry.
Great.
Okay. Okay, sorry. It says it's up here now, so if I can be heard, then I can run through it. Sorry about that.
Yes, please proceed, Steve.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, everyone. Well, thanks very much for this opportunity, and apologies for the challenge with the audio. I guess I'm a bit of a Luddite when it comes to webinars, but I'll move fairly quickly because I know there's not a huge amount of time left. I just wanted to start out by talking a little bit about why we chose to engage young people in agriculture. And this is some recent data from a report from the World Bank on youth employment in sub-Saharan Africa. And what it shows is essentially that, especially in low and middle income countries where the foundation is working, we're still looking at between 60 and 70% of young people engaged in some form of agricultural enterprise, either on farm or off farm. And that's why the number of the partnerships that we focused on in all streams of the foundation have been related to agricultural and agricultural enterprise. So there's three kind of core areas where we work with young people and in the agricultural sector through the foundation. One is around skills development for young people, and that's with partners such as Save the Children, TechnoServe, SNB, and others, which are looking at skills training, enterprise opportunities, formal employment related to agriculture. The second is around financial institutions who are working with extremely rural, extremely poor people and young people who are interested in agriculture and agribusiness. And those are partners like One Acre Fund and Opportunity International. And then the third is around using or leveraging our scholarship initiative to look at institutions that are interested in kind of training the next generation of farmers or agri-entrepreneurs, institutions like Earth University and Makerere University, who have particular agricultural initiatives that are related to the Foundation Scholars Program. So that's a kind of broad overview of the why and how, I guess, we're engaging young people. But where I wanted to focus today is on our youth think tank, which is one of the ways that we've engaged young people directly in conducting research on our behalf in a particular instance focused around agriculture. So we've had a think tank now. This is going on to its second year. We had one group that we had for about 18 months, and they did some research on our behalf across multiple countries in Africa, and it was focused on employment and enterprise opportunities and challenges for young people in sub-Saharan Africa. And the result of that was a report, which I've linked here, which was written with the inputs from our think tank members. Last year, when we were developing our economic opportunities for youth strategy, we were looking at particularly at agriculture as a sector of focus, and we wanted to get some input from young people directly on how they saw this as a viable livelihood or a livelihood of interest. So we engaged the same group for another piece of research that I'll talk to in a second. The think tank itself, just as in terms of background, this is a competitive process that we've opened up to young people who are related to our partners programming. So the partners that we have in Sub-Saharan Africa who are working with young people, we contacted them and we asked them to identify young people who may be interested, and then they applied, and we went through a fairly rigorous screening process that we wanted young people who had already been engaged at some degree with the programming, or they were either working or had done some research in the past, had worked in a youth enterprise, had been involved in their communities in some way. And we asked that they put forward a letter of why they wanted to join our think tank and what particular skills they had to be researchers informing our strategies and informing our programming. So we've had 2 rounds each with about 100 applicants across Africa, and currently with the current group that we have 6 members. Again, Pan-African from the countries that you see there. So they've got a 1-year contract on which they've agreed to do research on our behalf, anchored in a particular question. They go out and ask their friends and colleagues a questionnaire that's informed by the foundation. And then they also speak to community members. They've done online and virtual platforms. We brought them together recently in Tanzania to discuss their research, and all of that will feed into a second report that'll be due out later this year. Specific to agriculture, we had our think tank look at a question and a questionnaire specifically around agriculture and agribusiness, and they talked to 80 of their peers and 16 community and business leaders in both urban and rural settings. And the main findings that they had, which were then kind of integrated into our wider economic opportunities for youth strategy, was around the definition and clarity around what we meant by agribusiness itself as a sector versus the perception of farming or agriculture being specifically on-farm activities. And we found a high number of those who were interviewed by the think tank had a close connection to agriculture and agribusiness in some way, and they were interested in it potentially as a livelihood opportunity, depending on how it was characterized and defined. And we also saw that this was consistent between both urban and rural areas, which I think speaks to the fact that there's a lot of off-farm and agricultural and agribusiness opportunities in urban areas and peri-urban areas as well. When we spoke, or when the think tank spoke to other young people, I mean, the biggest thing that they found was this misunderstanding or association between agriculture and agribusiness with digging or with being specifically on farm. And I think we can empathize with the fact that young people seldom want to be the smallholder farmers that their parents are, but are interested in finding viable livelihoods, new livelihoods, accessing new technology, looking at this through a business lens, and finding other opportunities related to farming where there may be more employment opportunities, especially around poultry, honeybees, other kind of off-farm micro-enterprises. And so I think there's an opportunity to engage in a discussion with young people more about how the sector is defined and what opportunities might be around, and also engage with their parents, many of whom are hoping that their children go into more formal employment or white-collar jobs, civil service jobs, and are reluctant to see them engaging in training that pulls them back towards the farm or back into agricultural microenterprise. So for us, what this means is, as we develop our strategies and identify partners and work with our existing partners, we know that there is a deep connection and an interest in agricultural microenterprise for young people, that this is an option of interest, and there is a potential to develop programs that reach young people in this sector. We see that, like I said, parents are often reluctant to engage in some of these projects on behalf of young people, that sensitization and programming should also involve them as well. And then for us specifically, a lot of our partners are focusing on training and enterprise development and financing opportunities for on-farm and off-farm activities. And then lastly, that from the foundation's perspective, there's a great opportunity to engage young people through program design, program management, to ensure that they're involved in every step of the way. So I think I've taken us to the top of the hour, so I'm sorry that I was late joining with the audio, but I'll stop there.
Thank you so much, Steve. And we are able to continue for a few more minutes if you'd like to make any other concluding points. And also, we'd welcome your thoughts on some of the questions that have rolled in through the chat.
Sure.
Thank you so much for your perseverance. And I think one of the things that both of these examples, to me, the reason particularly wanted Steve and Simeon here is that both of the examples of their work really show a way of engaging young people, not just as sort of passive recipients of a program, but as very engaged leaders and innovators all through every stage of the program. And that's what young people have really been asking for, to be seen, to be heard, to have a voice, but also to have power and to have work and jobs and businesses in rural development programs. So I think both of you really show how, at a nitty-gritty level, you've been able to do that. There was a great question that came in for the MasterCard Foundation, Steve, which is, there are good jobs in urban areas. In general, there are better jobs in urban areas. So how do you as a foundation, or how do your partners try to ensure that the economic opportunities you're stimulating in rural areas are more lucrative or otherwise more attractive than the opportunities in urban areas?
I think that by reframing the issue of agriculture as an agribusiness or entrepreneurship opportunity, there's a way to at least showcase that there can be a good livelihood made in rural areas as compared to urban areas. And I think there's higher degrees of vulnerable and underemployment in urban areas, and there's an opportunity to increase productivity and have enterprises in rural areas where there's lower rates of unemployment, but higher rates or lower rates of productivity as well. We recently did a midterm review of a TechnoServe program that was called Stride, and they found that after 18 months that the incomes that young people had made were averaging close to increases in 90% from what they were doing before the training, and that was increasing the longer they were out of the program. So I think showcasing projects like that, showcasing enterprise opportunities, is a good way to offset some of the myths about the opportunities around urban employment.
Mary, you're not currently coming through. One moment, please.
Got it.
There it is.
Similar to some of the programs that I'm profiling, that when, and one of the things that the IDS Bulletin emphasizes is exactly this issue that, for some people in rural areas, they don't have a choice of migrating anyway, and you just really need to help them kind of improve their livelihood and their basic survival. But if we can, and when we can, for most young people, what we're trying to do is offer decent work, a good livelihood, something transformative. And that really is going to take linking young people with initiatives that are really transforming the way that agriculture is done. And so, as Steve's saying, the idea is not just to have young people take over the family farm. The idea is that we need to do things really differently if we're going to both significantly increase agricultural production and significantly increase incomes. So linking young people with those more transformative projects. So it's 5 minutes past, and I think that unfortunately we need to wrap up. And there are many great comments that have come in, and what I'm going to do is turn it over to Whitney to sort of close and explain how how we can share the comments, how our presenters can answer some of the questions, and how you can remain engaged in this process. So I just want to say thank you so much to Making Sense for organizing this first of a series of webinars on rural economic opportunities for youth, and to thank Steve and Simeon for persevering and coming and presenting, and all of you for engaging and participating. And I really look forward to more engagement. So let me turn that over to Whitney at this point. Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Mary, and to all of our great presenters, including and to all of you for continuing through the technical problems that we've been encountering here, but it's been wonderful to have their expertise coming from different locations. And we look forward to continuing the conversation with all of you. We're going to be posting these PowerPoint presentations, the resources they shared, and some other upcoming events, and also responses to some of your questions on a web page we're developing, and we'll be sending you the link within the next 24 to 48 hours. We also welcome you to flag on your calendar October 6th through 8th, which is where the next Global Youth Economic Opportunities Conference will take place in Washington, D.C. We will continue a focus on how to increase and improve economic opportunities for young people in rural areas. And we also welcome your review of the draft document that Mary had highlighted at the beginning of her presentation. We welcome your comments by noon on Thursday. We will send you that link and a follow-on email that you will be receiving within the next 24 hours. So just thank you all so much for your participation, and please let us know if you're interested in collaborating on a webinar or blogging, posting a resource, or otherwise leveraging Making Sense's collaborative learning and action platforms for sharing your practical information that really strengthens the field of youth economic opportunities. Please visit the website that we have, www.youtheconomicopportunities.org, which we're typing into the chat box now. And also feel free to email me at whitney@makingsense.com. Again, we will be typing that into the chat box. We look forward to hearing from you and wish you all the best with your important initiatives. Thank you.